Chapter 1. The Cold Return. The house on Willow Creek Lane had always been quiet, but tonight it felt colder. Liam Matthews stood by the kitchen sink, rinsing the last of the dishes under lukewarm water. His mother, Emily, hummed softly behind him, folding towels on the counter. Outside, wind rustled through the trees of San Jose, and the kitchen lights cast warm shadows on the tiled floor. Then the door creaked open. Liam turned his head slightly. The sound of a suitcase rolling across the entryway tiles was unmistakable. His father, Connor Matthews, had returned from yet another business trip. "He's back," Liam whispered, more to himself than to Emily. Emily stopped humming. Her eyes moved toward the hallway, but she didn't call out. After 20 years, she had learned not to expect anything different. She wiped her hands, straightened her shoulders, and gave Liam a small nod. "Finish up, honey. I'll bring him some tea." Liam dried his hands but didn't move. He stared at the hallway as if it were a portal to something unfamiliar. His father had been in and out of the house his entire life, like a passing season. He never stayed long enough for roots to grow. Moments later, the tall, stoic figure of Connor appeared in the doorway. His suit was slightly wrinkled, hair peppered with gray, and eyes tired but sharp. Liam instinctively took a step back. "Welcome home," Emily said, offering a polite smile as she placed the tea on the table. Connor nodded. "Thanks." He didn't look at Liam. "Not once." "Dinner's in the fridge. I kept it warm for you." "I ate at the airport," he replied, pulling out a chair. His tone wasn't rude but distant, as though reading from a script he'd used 1,000 times. Liam lingered by the sink, uncertain if he should stay or leave. He wanted to say something, anything. A welcome, a question, even a joke. But the weight of years of silence pressed too heavily on his chest. "Good day at school?" Emily asked, trying to bridge the gap between father and son. Liam glanced at her, then at Connor, who was flipping through emails on his phone. "Yeah," Liam said. "Midterms are coming." Connor mumbled, not looking up. Silence. Emily cleared her throat. Liam's professor said his photo essay was one of the best in class. They might submit it to a state competition. "Oh!" Connor glanced up briefly, his brows slightly raised. "What's the theme?" Liam's heart skipped. It was the first question his father had asked him in weeks. "What home means to you," Liam answered, almost too quickly. "I chose to shoot empty spaces in our house, light, shadows, corners no one really notices." Connor's eyes lingered on him for a second. Then he looked away. "Interesting." That was it. "Good night," Liam muttered, grabbing his backpack and heading upstairs. Emily watched him go, her eyes wet with unshed words. When the sound of Liam's door closing echoed through the house, she sat down across from Connor. "You could try harder, you know," she said gently. "I'm here now, aren't I?" he replied without emotion. "That's not the same." Connor looked into his tea. "It's been 20 years, Emily. I can't fake what I don't feel." Her face hardened slightly. "But you do feel something. You just won't admit it." He didn't reply. Upstairs, Liam sat on his bed, scrolling through photos on his camera. One shot, a sliver of sunlight falling across the empty armchair in the living room, made him pause. He stared at it for a long time. A caption formed in his mind, a seat always occupied, yet never truly filled. And in that moment, Liam realized something cruel. You could live under the same roof with someone your whole life and still feel like a stranger. Chapter 2. The Beginning of Silence. Emily stood at the sink the next morning, her hands submerged in soapy water, scrubbing the same mug over and over. Steam curled from her untouched tea beside her. She wasn't really washing, she was remembering. 20 years ago, in that very kitchen, she had stood with the same nervous flutter in her chest, wondering if her husband would come home for the birth of their son. He hadn't. He had called from Frankfurt. The launch is delayed. I can't leave now, he'd said. She had cried silently in the hospital room, clutching a newborn Liam in her arms, while other fathers handed out cigars in the waiting room. Connor sent flowers. It wasn't always this way. She reminded herself. There was a time when Connor had smiled at her across the same table, when they danced barefoot on these same tiles after long days. But something shifted the moment she became pregnant with Liam. Something unsaid. Something cruel. The sound of footsteps broke her thoughts. Connor walked into the kitchen, freshly shaved, in his usual crisp white shirt. "Morning," she said, not turning around. "Morning," he replied curtly. She turned off the tap, dried her hands, and leaned against the counter. "Do you have a flight today?" "No. Meetings in Sunnyvale all afternoon." She nodded. "I thought maybe we could have dinner together. As a family." Connor reached for a protein bar and poured himself coffee. "We'll see." Emily watched him in silence for a moment, then said the words she had been holding in her chest for years. "Why do you hate him?" Connor froze. "I don't hate him," he said, eyes narrowing slightly. "Yes, you do," she whispered. "You don't look at him. You don't talk to him unless I force you. You didn't even hold him once when he was born. That was 20 years ago, Emily. But you still act like he's not yours." Connor's grip on the coffee cup tightened. He sat down slowly at the kitchen table, his voice low. "Because I don't know if he is." Emily's breath caught. She had always known that was the reason, but hearing it aloud felt like being stabbed. "You really think I cheated on you?" Connor didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, the early sun glinting off the backyard fence. "You remember that conference in Phoenix? You didn't answer your phone for 2 days. When I came back, you were suddenly different. Nervous. Avoiding me." "I was nauseous," Emily replied, her voice shaking. "I had just found out I was pregnant. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared. You said a neighbor helped you to the clinic," he continued, voice colder now. "Some guy. A new neighbor. You never told me his name." Emily's face turned pale. "Because he was just being kind. An older man. His wife wasn't home, and I fainted on the sidewalk. That's all." Connor leaned back in the chair, jaw clenched. "You don't know what it's like being gone all the time, coming back to see someone else has stepped into your place. Knowing there's a possibility that the child you're raising might not be yours." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "So you just shut off? For 20 years. Connor looked up. "What would you have done?" "I would have asked. I would have trusted. I wouldn't have punished a child who did nothing wrong." There was silence. Footsteps padded down the stairs, and Liam appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. He paused when he saw both of them in the kitchen. "Morning," he said quietly. Connor stood abruptly, gathering his briefcase. "I have to go." Liam stepped aside as his father brushed past him without a word. Emily forced a smile. "I made waffles. Sit down. Eat something." But Liam didn't move. He looked toward the front door that had just shut behind his father. "Mom, does he hate me?" The question sliced her heart open. "No," she said. "He's just been lost for a very long time." Liam said nothing. He walked to the table and sat down slowly, staring at his empty plate. And Emily realized something terrifying, no matter how much she tried to hold them together. Some gaps were never meant to be filled by just one person. Chapter 3. Between Two Walls. Liam sat in the back row of his Introduction to Media Studies class, eyes glazed over as the professor droned on about visual narratives. His notebook lay open but untouched. He wasn't hearing any of it. His mind kept circling back to that morning. "Does he hate me?" He hadn't expected an answer. Not really. It was the kind of question people asked when they already knew. His father's eyes haunted him. Cold. Unreadable. Like Liam was a problem he had never asked for, a riddle that never deserved solving. The class ended. Chairs scraped against the tile floor. Students filtered out, chatting about weekend plans. Project deadlines. Liam walked alone, camera bag slung across his shoulder. He headed toward the campus greenhouse, his favorite escape. Inside, the warm humidity wrapped around him like a second skin. Plants whispered in silence, unbothered by human complication. He found his usual bench near the orchids and sat down. Pulling out his camera, he flipped through the photos from his latest project. Empty chair. Half-opened window. Mirror reflecting no one. They were beautiful in composition, but undeniably lonely. His professor had called it hauntingly introspective. Liam called it home. His phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Dinner at 6. Your favorite, garlic roast chicken. Please come home early tonight? He typed back, okay, then paused. He opened his notes app and stared at a blank page before typing. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to be wanted. Not because someone has to, but because they want to. Not out of duty, but love. He saved it and closed his phone. That evening, Liam stepped into the house, the smell of rosemary and garlic wrapping around him. He slipped off his shoes and walked toward the kitchen. Emily was setting the table, her smile bright but eyes heavy. Perfect timing, she said. Go ahead and sit. I'll call your dad. Liam blinked. He's home. Emily nodded. Got back early today. A strange twist settled in Liam's stomach, half surprise, half dread. Connor walked in a few minutes later, sleeves rolled up, no tie. He paused when he saw Liam at the table. Their eyes met for a brief second before Connor looked away. I heard about your essay project, he said suddenly, settling into his chair. Liam froze. You did? Emily glanced between them, cautious. Connor cleared his throat. Your mom showed me your photos. The one with the hallway light. It's good. Liam didn't know what to say. Compliments weren't something that passed between them often, if ever. Thanks, he said, voice low. An awkward silence followed as they ate. Forks clinked against plates. The usual quiet returned. But it was somehow different. Like a room that had just been dusted, still empty, but clearer. After dinner, as Liam began gathering dishes, Connor stood and started to help. Liam stared. You don't have to. I know, Connor said. They washed in silence. Liam handed over the dishes and Connor dried them. They moved like gears in an unfamiliar machine, but it worked. Then, just as Liam turned to leave, Connor spoke. I saw something, years ago. A letter. From a man I didn't know. I let it get into my head. It ruined a lot. Liam stood still. Connor looked at the floor. I don't know if I can undo what I did, but I want to try. If you let me. The moment hung in the air like fragile glass. Liam didn't respond, but that night, instead of shutting his bedroom door, he left it slightly open. And for the first time in a very long time, so did Connor. Chapter 4. The Letter in the Drawer. The next morning, Liam woke to soft sunlight creeping in through the half-closed blinds. His room felt oddly different, as if the air itself had shifted overnight. It wasn't warmer exactly, but less cold. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the crack in his doorway. It had remained open all night. So had his father's. Downstairs. The soft hum of the coffee machine signaled that someone was already awake. Likely his mother. Maybe this time, even his father. But Liam wasn't ready to go down yet. Instead, he pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk and retrieved an old cardboard box labeled Keepsakes, High School. Amidst the yearbooks and participation ribbons, he found what he'd been thinking about all night, the folded envelope that had once slipped from the back of a kitchen drawer when he was helping his mother find batteries. He hadn't opened it then. It had looked too personal, the kind of thing that adults never meant for kids to see. But now he needed answers. Liam unfolded the paper with care. The ink had faded slightly with time, but the handwriting was still clear. Dear Emily, I hope this note finds you well. I'm still so sorry for what happened that day, how you collapsed out front and had to be taken in such a rush. I wish I had done more, stayed longer at the clinic. My wife asked about you later, said she hoped you were all right. I told her you were, but truthfully, you looked afraid. If there's ever anything more I can do, please don't hesitate. Take care of yourself and that baby. He'll be lucky to have a mom like you. Tom. Liam read it twice. Then a third time. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't intimate. It wasn't anything like what his father must have assumed. Just a neighbor being kind. Someone who helped a pregnant woman on the verge of collapse. Someone who didn't even sign with affection, just Tom. Liam's fingers tightened on the paper. So this was it? This was the letter his father had read. The one that planted doubt. The one that stole 20 years from them all? He felt a rush of frustration, no, anger, boiling in his chest. Not just at his father. At the silence. At the years of pretending. At the questions he was too afraid to ask and the love he never received. And yet, something about last night clung to him. The photo comment. The washing dishes. The open doors. Maybe his father didn't know how to fix it. Maybe he never would. But Liam had to understand what had started it all, because only then could he decide whether it was worth rebuilding. He stood, folded the letter carefully, and tucked it into the back pocket of his jeans. Downstairs, Connor sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the newspaper with a mug of coffee in hand. He looked up when Liam entered. "Morning," Connor said. Not cold, not warm, neutral. "Morning." Emily turned from the stove, beaming. "I made pancakes." "Thanks," Liam said, sliding into his usual seat. His eyes started to Connor, who looked unusually alert this morning. They ate in quiet again, but not the suffocating kind. This time, the silence had space. Breath. Halfway through breakfast, Liam took a deep breath. "Dad," he said. Connor paused, fork in midair. "Did you ever read this?" Liam pulled the folded letter from his pocket and placed it on the table, sliding it across. Connor looked at it. His face didn't change, but his hands stopped moving. "I did," Connor said softly. "Years ago." "And that's why you pulled away?" Liam asked. "All this time?" Connor didn't answer right away. He picked up the letter, glanced over it like he was seeing it for the first time. When he set it down again, his voice cracked, just slightly. "I didn't know how to ask. I was scared, jealous, angry. I convinced myself there was more to it. And instead of asking, you decided I wasn't yours?" Connor swallowed hard. "I didn't decide. I just couldn't be sure. And I couldn't pretend I was." Emily, silent until now, placed a gentle hand on Liam's shoulder. "There's a test, you know," Liam said quietly. "One you never asked for, but it exists." Connor looked up sharply. "Maybe it's time to take it," Liam added. "For both of us." Connor nodded once. Not in guilt, not in defeat, but in agreement. And with that, something long buried began to move beneath the surface, something that might, one day, be called healing. Chapter 5. The blood between us. The fluorescent lights of the urgent care clinic buzzed faintly overhead, a quiet hum that seemed to vibrate through the tense silence in the waiting room. Connor Matthews sat in the corner, his legs crossed tightly, a clipboard on his knee. Beside him, Liam filled out his portion of the paperwork. His handwriting steady, too steady for what he was feeling inside. The DNA test wasn't legally required. There was no custody dispute, no court order. It was a choice, a personal reckoning. Liam had offered it. Connor had accepted. Emily had begged them not to do it. "You don't need a piece of paper to know what love is," she had said. But this wasn't about love. Not yet. This was about truth. A nurse stepped in. "Mr. Matthews? We're ready for you." They both stood. "No, just you first," she clarified, glancing between them. "You're the alleged father, right?" The words stung more than Liam expected. Connor gave a tight nod and followed her down the hallway. Liam sat back down, fingers tightening around the armrest of the chair. He hated that word, alleged, as if his existence were still a question. 15 minutes passed before Connor returned, silent. He sat beside Liam, not saying a word, just nodding when it was Liam's turn. Inside the small testing room, a nurse swabbed the inside of his cheek and asked him to sign a release form. Simple, quick, clinical. By the time he re-entered the waiting room, Connor was staring out the window at the parking lot, lost in thought. All done, Liam muttered. Connor stood. They said results in 5 business days. Right. They walked toward the parking lot in silence. It was mid-afternoon, the California sun bright but oddly cool, a breeze cutting through the stillness between them. When they reached Connor's car, he hesitated before unlocking it. Liam, he said slowly, I need to say something before we know the answer. Liam turned, arms crossed. Connor looked at him directly, and for once, without any wall in his eyes. If the test says you're not mine, I'll still be here. Liam blinked. Why? Because I wasted 20 years trying to be right. And I've never felt more wrong. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was something deeper, an opening. They got into the car and drove home. Not speaking. But the silence was different now. It wasn't sharp. It didn't cut. It held. The days that followed were a strange kind of limbo. Liam went back to classes, back to his photography, back to the familiar rituals of pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. He started noticing things he hadn't before, how his father lingered a few seconds longer at the dinner table, how he asked questions about Liam's professors, how he tried, awkwardly, to say good night instead of just disappearing upstairs. Connor was no natural at connection. Years of distance had calcified his ability to show affection. But Liam could see the effort. One night, while Emily was grading papers in the living room, Connor knocked on Liam's bedroom door. Hey, he said. Liam looked up from his laptop. Yeah? I was thinking. If you're free this weekend, there's a photography exhibit at the Tech Museum. You know, urban decay. Might be your kind of thing. Liam blinked. You don't have to, Connor added quickly. Just thought I'd mention it. I'll go, Liam said, almost surprising himself. Connor gave a faint smile. Cool. I'll buy the tickets. When the door closed, Liam sat still for a long time. And then, for the first time in years, he opened a new blog post and titled it, The Space Between Then and Now. He wrote, Sometimes healing doesn't come like thunder. It comes like a door left open, quietly waiting. 5 days later, the phone rang. Emily answered. Matthew's residence. She went still, then slowly covered the receiver. It's the lab. Liam's heart dropped. Connor stood up slowly from the kitchen table. Emily handed the phone to him. Hello, Connor said, voice tight. A pause. Then, yes, I understand. Thank you. He hung up. The room was silent. Liam stood, his hands clammy. Connor looked at him. You're mine. Liam exhaled. Connor blinked rapidly, then walked over. He didn't say a word, just pulled Liam into a sudden, almost awkward embrace. But it held, and Liam didn't pull away. For the first time in 2 decades, there was no more alleged. No more, maybe. Just father. Just son. Chapter 6. The Diagnosis. The joy from the DNA results didn't last long. 2 weeks later, Liam came home from campus early, pale and shaky. Emily found him sitting on the bathroom floor, sweat clinging to his brow, his body curled in on itself like a withered leaf. I feel dizzy, he murmured. And my side hurts. Emily's breath caught. She crouched beside him, her hand flying to his forehead. He was burning up. Without hesitation, she called 911. By the time Connor arrived at the hospital, Liam was already in a gown. And 4 in his arm, monitors beeping softly beside him. What happened? He demanded, eyes scanning Emily's anxious face. They're running tests, she whispered, tears forming. The doctor said it might be his kidneys. Connor turned to the nurse. "Where's the attending?" A woman in blue scrubs stepped forward. "Dr. Weston, I'm handling your son's case." Based on the initial scans, Liam's right kidney appears significantly inflamed. We're also seeing high creatinine levels, suggesting compromised renal function. Connor's face went pale. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said gently, "your son may be entering the early stages of kidney failure. We're running more tests, but if things progress, we'll need to discuss long-term options, including dialysis or transplant." Emily gasped, covering her mouth. Connor turned to the glass window separating him from Liam's hospital bed. His son, his real, flesh-and-blood son, looked small beneath the thin white sheets. Fragile in a way Connor had never allowed himself to see. The days that followed were a blur of medical jargon, test results, and quiet sobs in bathroom stalls. Liam's condition stabilized, but the prognosis was clear. His kidneys were deteriorating rapidly. One evening, Liam sat up in bed, pale but lucid. Connor was seated nearby, flipping through the paperwork from the nephrologist. "Is it bad?" Liam asked. Connor looked up, startled. "What?" "My kidneys. Just tell me." Connor hesitated, then nodded slowly. "It's bad, but we're going to do everything we can." Liam stared down at his hands. "Guess it's a good thing we confirmed I'm your son, huh?" Connor's breath caught in his throat. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. Instead, he said, "I already had the hospital test my compatibility." Liam looked up. "I'm a match," Connor said softly. "If you need a transplant, I'll do it." Liam blinked, his lips parting in shock. "You would?" Connor leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "I should have given you everything a father gives his son: time, affection, protection. I didn't, but I can give you this. And I want to." Liam's throat tightened. "But what if it goes wrong? What if it hurts you?" Connor smiled weakly. "I think it would hurt more not to try." A long silence fell between them. But unlike the many silences before, this one had weight, warmth, even hope. Emily stepped in with a tray of soup and caught the moment. She paused at the door, heart swelling. Maybe this wasn't how she had imagined her family healing, but sometimes grace came in the most broken of forms. A few days later, after countless consultations, evaluations, and clearances, the hospital officially scheduled the transplant. It was risky. It was real. And for the first time since Liam was born, Connor held his hand in the pre-op room, not as a man shackled by doubt, but as a father full of love. Chapter 7. The weight of a heartbeat. The operating room was chilled and sterile, filled with soft beeping machines and steady hands. Connor lay still on one table, prepped and sedated, while Liam lay on another. A team of surgeons moving between them in choreographed precision. Underneath their calm voices and procedural commands, a silent prayer seemed to float through the air unspoken, but shared by everyone. Emily sat alone in the waiting room, her fingers laced tightly together, unmoving. She had been here before, 20 years ago, when Liam was born. Back then, she'd waited for life to begin. Now she waited so it wouldn't end. Hours passed. At last, a young surgeon entered, removing his mask. His face was calm, reassuring. "Mrs. Matthews," he said gently. Emily stood up so fast she nearly lost balance. "Both surgeries went well," he said. Connor's kidney was healthy and strong. Liam's body accepted the organ immediately. There's still a long recovery ahead, but the first hurdle is behind you. Emily's hands flew to her mouth. Relief came like a storm, violent, shaking, tears flowing freely. She thanked him over and over. Later, she stood beside Liam's bed as he slowly stirred awake. His eyelids fluttered open. "Mom, I'm here," she whispered, smoothing back his hair. Everything went perfectly. He blinked slowly. "Dad?" "In recovery." You're both okay. Liam's throat bobbed. He reached for her hand. He really did it? She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. He really did. 3 days later, Connor and Liam shared a hospital room, both still pale, both attached to IVs and monitors, but alive. Liam sat propped up in bed, scrolling through his phone, while Connor flipped through a magazine he wasn't really reading. For a while, neither spoke. Then Connor cleared his throat. You know, he said, voice gravelly, when they wheeled me in. I thought I might die. Liam looked up, startled. Connor continued. Not because of the surgery. Because of everything I'd never said. Everything I missed. I thought, what if this is the only thing he'll remember me for? Liam lowered his phone. It's not. Connor met his eyes. I remember the silence, Liam said honestly. The way you'd leave before sunrise. The way you walked past me like I wasn't even there. I remember that. Connor looked away. But now, I'll also remember this, Liam added softly. You choosing to stay. To help. To save me. Connor swallowed hard. I want more than just memories of regret. I want us to be something better. Liam nodded. Me too. That night, while the nurses dimmed the lights and the hallway quieted, father and son sat in the glow of the small bedside lamp. Connor reached for the remote and turned on an old movie, something he used to love when he was Liam's age. To his surprise, Liam didn't complain. He just smiled faintly and watched alongside him. Their heartbeats were no longer separate. One quite literally now lived within the other. And for the first time, the silence between them wasn't a wall. It was a space where something new could grow. Chapter 8. Returning home. The day they were discharged, the California sky was a bright, forgiving blue. Spring had begun to stretch itself across the city, trees budding, breeze warm and gentle. It was the kind of day people took for granted. But for Connor and Liam, it felt like the beginning of a new life. Emily drove slowly, stealing glances at the two men in the back seat. Liam leaned his head against the window, pale but peaceful. Connor sat beside him, quiet, one hand resting lightly on the seat between them. Not touching, but close. As the car turned down Willow Creek Lane, Liam let out a small laugh. What is it? Connor asked. Liam pointed toward their mailbox, where a bright red balloon had been tied, bobbing gently in the wind. Emily smiled. The neighbors, Mrs. Ellis and her grandkids, came by this morning. Left soup and a note. Connor blinked. I didn't even think anyone knew. They did, Emily said. People pay attention when a family almost breaks. Inside, the house was clean, sunlit, and unfamiliar in its warmth. Emily had aired out the rooms, lit soft candles, placed fresh flowers on the kitchen table. Even the air felt new. Liam paused in the hallway. He stared at the framed photo hanging there, him at age 7, holding a school art project, standing stiffly beside his mother. Connor stood a few inches away in the background, arms crossed. I always hated this photo, Liam said quietly. Connor stepped beside him. I know. I look like I'm waiting for something. Connor exhaled slowly. You were. They stood in silence. Then Liam walked to the living room, sat gingerly on the couch. He looked smaller now, more delicate. But there was a calm in him that hadn't been there before. Not since childhood. Connor brought over a blanket and draped it over Liam's lap without a word. Liam looked up. You don't have to. I want to. The words were simple, soft, and they meant everything. In the following days, they settled into a new rhythm. Connor, still sore from the surgery, worked remotely, taking calls from the study. But every few hours, he emerged to check on Liam, bringing water, reminding him to take meds, or just sitting quietly with him while he watched documentaries or edited his photos. One afternoon, Liam called him over. Can I show you something? Connor sat beside him at the desk. Liam pulled up a folder on his laptop titled Father/Son. Inside were dozens of photographs, light patterns on 2 coffee mugs, the way sunlight hit 2 armchairs, the shadow of a hand resting on another. Connor blinked. "You've been photographing us?" "Since before the surgery. When you started helping. It felt like something I didn't want to forget." Connor clicked through the images slowly, each one more tender than the last. They weren't about perfection. They were about presence. "I thought I didn't deserve this," Connor whispered. "Didn't deserve you." Liam gave him a tired but sincere smile. "You didn't. But people change. And I need to believe in that." Connor reached for his hand. And this time, Liam didn't pull away. That night, Emily watched them from the kitchen. 2 shadows side by side, their voices low, laughter occasionally escaping like birds set free. She closed her eyes for a moment. 20 years of pain. 1 act of courage. And now, finally, a family, not just a name, but in love. Chapter 9. A Frame for Regret. Connor couldn't sleep. It was 2:47 a.m., and the house was still. The kind of silence that presses on your chest. He stood in the hallway, a glass of water in his hand, staring at the soft light spilling from under Liam's bedroom door. It was comforting now, proof that he wasn't losing time anymore. He walked quietly to the study instead, needing space. Needing something. At the back of a drawer, beneath old tax files and technical manuals, he found the envelope. The original paternity test request. From 19 years ago. He had never sent it. He sat down in the dark, unfolded it with trembling fingers. His own signature stared back at him, half a lifetime ago, half a man ago. He remembered that version of himself, bitter, proud, and terrified. A man who would rather punish the people he loved than face the fear of being wrong. He let the paper fall to the floor. Then he cried. Not loudly, not violently, but in the way only a father can cry, quiet, choked, and full of things that should have been said long ago. The next morning, he awoke late. Sunlight was already warming the house when he walked into the kitchen, surprised to find Liam up and dressed. "I thought you were supposed to rest," Connor said gently. "I am," Liam said. "But I wanted to give you something." He held out a thin, wrapped frame. Connor blinked. "What is it?" "Just open it." Connor carefully removed the brown paper. Inside was a photograph, black and white, softly lit. It was of their hands, Liam's resting atop Connor's, both marked by hospital ID bracelets. A simple composition, but deeply human. Connor stared. Liam said, "I call it proof of life." Connor swallowed hard. "You took this right before they wheeled us into surgery." "I asked a nurse to press the shutter." Connor looked at the image again. He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." Liam's voice was soft, but steady. "No, but you're here. You chose to be here. And that means something." Connor's eyes filled again. "I spent years looking at you, thinking you weren't mine. But all I see now is how wrong I was." Liam stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You were scared. So was I. But now we get to decide what's next." Connor nodded slowly. "Then what's next?" Liam smiled. "A life. Together. However imperfect it looks." That evening, they hung the framed photo on the wall beside the family portraits. Emily stood back with them, tears glinting in her eyes. "For once," she whispered, "this house finally feels like home." Chapter 10. A Seat at the Table. It was Sunday evening. The table was set with care, ceramic plates, cloth napkins, even Emily's crystal water pitcher that hadn't seen daylight in years. The scent of rosemary chicken drifted from the oven, filling every corner of the house. This dinner was more than a meal. It was a declaration. Liam stepped into the dining room slowly, still recovering, his gait a little unsure, but his eyes clear. He paused when he saw the table, 3 plates, 3 candles, and the photograph hung on the wall behind them. Proof of life. Connor came in a few minutes later, dressed in something other than work clothes. No laptop, no briefcase, just a worn gray sweater and gentle eyes. Emily, wearing her favorite navy apron, gestured to the chairs. "Shall we?" They sat down together, something they hadn't done, truly, in years. No phones, no distractions. Just food, presents, and something else neither Liam nor Connor could name yet. Maybe it was peace. Halfway through dinner, Liam reached for the mashed potatoes, smiling. "I remember when I was a kid. I used to think you didn't like mashed potatoes, Dad." Connor looked up, surprised. "Why? You never took any." "Not once." Connor exhaled. "I didn't eat them because they reminded me of my mother. She used to make them every Sunday. And when she passed, I couldn't stand the taste." Liam blinked. "I never knew that." "I never told you," Connor said. "I never told you a lot of things." He looked at Emily, then at Liam. He pushed his plate aside and took a breath. "I don't want to leave anything unsaid anymore." The room stilled. "I was wrong, Liam," Connor said, voice thick. "I doubted your mother. I doubted you. I let fear turn me into a man I'd barely recognize. And you paid the price for that." Liam said nothing, but his throat tightened. Connor continued. "I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know this: every heartbeat I have left, I will use to show you that you matter. That I'm proud of you. And that you were never, ever unwanted." Emily's eyes shimmered. Her hand slid across the table and found Connor's. Liam stared at his father, studying the lines on his face, the rawness in his eyes. And then, softly, he said, "I forgive you." Connor's breath hitched. "I don't know if I'll ever forget," Liam added. "But I don't want to carry it anymore. I want us to have something real, even if we're late." Connor nodded slowly, eyes brimming. And that night, for the first time, they laughed over dessert. Liam told them about his photography professor who wore mismatched socks. Emily told stories from the early days of marriage. And Connor, he simply listened, his hand resting lightly on Liam's chair. The silence that had once haunted their home had been replaced not by noise, but by belonging. Later, when Liam walked past the hallway photo again, the one he'd once hated, he paused. This time, he didn't see distance. He saw the beginning of something that had taken 20 years to bloom. And for the first time, he whispered into the quiet, "I'm home." Chapter 11. A world beyond recovery. Liam stood in front of the mirror, tugging gently at the hem of his hoodie. The scar just beneath the fabric, clean, pink, and new, was still tender to the touch. It was a quiet reminder of everything: pain, sacrifice, and rebirth. He hadn't returned to campus yet. His professors had granted him a medical extension, and most days were still spent at home, resting, journaling, editing photos from the hospital window. But today, he was going out. Alone. "Are you sure you're ready?" Emily asked from the hallway. Concern etched across her face. "I have to try," Liam replied, "even if it's just for a coffee." Connor appeared behind her. "Take your time. And text us when you get there." "Not because we don't trust you," he added quickly, "but because we care." Liam gave him a half-smile. "I will." As he stepped outside, the sunlight hit his face like a blessing. The world hadn't changed, but he had. He took the long way into town, walking slowly, pausing every few blocks when fatigue kicked in. But the pace gave him time to notice the details: sunlight reflecting on windows, a child laughing as she chased pigeons, the slow rhythm of life that he had always been too burdened to appreciate. He entered his favorite cafe, Morning Finch, a small, plant-filled space with open windows and jazz music humming in the background. He ordered chamomile tea and sat by the window with his sketchbook. As he sipped, he noticed a girl at the next table. Auburn hair, oversized sweater, thick sketchpad in front of her. She was drawing something: shadows, maybe? Or light. Their eyes met briefly. She smiled. Liam smiled back. Later that evening, back at home, Connor was setting the table when he heard the door open. "Hey," Liam called out softly, toeing off his sneakers. Connor walked over. "How was it?" Liam nodded, setting down his bag. "Good. Different." Emily appeared with 2 bowls of soup. "Tired?" "Yeah," Liam said, flopping onto the couch. "But a good kind of tired." Connor smiled, sitting beside him. "That's how you know you're starting over." There was a pause. Then Liam said, "I met someone. At the cafe." Just a glance, really. But it felt light. "Light?" Emily asked, raising an eyebrow. "Like something new. Something I wasn't expecting." Connor nodded thoughtfully. "You've carried a lot of weight, son. Maybe it's okay to let some of it go." Liam looked up. "You too." Connor paused, then reached out, this time, not with hesitation, but with ease, and ruffled Liam's hair like he used to when he was a child. "I'm trying." Liam leaned back against the cushion and closed his eyes. And for the first time in a long, long time, he didn't feel broken. Just healing. Slowly, but surely. Chapter 12. Circles reopening. The Monday morning train to UC Davis rattled gently as it cut through the outskirts of the city. Liam sat near the window, his backpack resting by his feet. Earbuds in but no music playing. He just needed the silence, the comforting hum of movement, of being part of something again. He hadn't stepped foot on campus in nearly 2 months. It felt strange, like walking back into a dream where the furniture had been slightly rearranged. He still recognized everything, but nothing quite felt the same. The halls buzzed with the usual chatter. Students rushing to class, laptops balanced on one hand, coffee in the other. Posters for art exhibits and internship fairs covered the bulletin boards. He walked into his media studies lecture, and heads turned. "Liam," a girl whispered. "Hey, you okay? We thought you dropped out." He smiled faintly. "Just needed time." His professor, a tall, soft-spoken man named Dr. Sloan, paused mid-sentence when Liam entered. "Well, if it isn't our ghost with a camera," he said warmly. "Welcome back, Mr. Matthews." A few chuckles echoed in the room. Liam nodded and quietly took his seat near the back. After class, as students packed up, Dr. Sloan called out, "Liam, a moment?" Liam walked up to the front. "I saw the proof of life piece on the department blog," Dr. Sloan said. "Stunning work. And even more stunning story." Liam's brows lifted. "Wait, it got published?" "The photo and your caption. It went viral within the faculty. A few galleries have even asked about your portfolio." Liam blinked. "I didn't submit it." Dr. Sloan smiled. "Your mother did. She sent me a private message, asking if I'd consider sharing it in the student spotlight. Said you wouldn't do it yourself." Liam laughed softly. "That sounds like her." "Keep going, Liam. You have something rare. You capture feeling, not just form. That's the difference between good and unforgettable." Liam nodded, touched. "Thank you." As he turned to leave, he spotted her, the girl from the cafe. She was seated near the door, sketchpad on her lap again, headphones dangling from one ear. Their eyes met. This time, she waved. Liam walked over. "You again," she said with a grin. "Guilty." "I'm Ava," she said, extending her hand. "Liam." She nodded toward his camera, slung over his shoulder. "You always carry it?" "Always," he said. "Even when I don't take pictures. It's like a reminder to stay open." She tilted her head. "That's beautiful." Liam smiled. "So, what do you draw?" "People who don't know they're being seen," she replied, flipping her sketchpad toward him. There he was, him, sitting at the cafe last week, framed in graphite and shadow. His posture slightly guarded, his eyes looking out the window. Alone, but searching. He stared at it. "I look so lost," she offered gently. He nodded. "You're not the only one," she said. That afternoon, he told his parents about Ava. Just her name. Just that she drew him without asking and somehow got him exactly right. Connor exchanged a glance with Emily, a soft smile on his lips. Later that night, Liam added a new photo to his blog. A single yellow tulip growing through cracked pavement. Caption: sometimes life doesn't return through doors. It grows where you least expect it. Chapter 13. Between Pages and Scars. It had been 3 weeks since the cafe. Now Liam and Ava met there regularly, sometimes with sketchbooks, sometimes with cameras, sometimes just with silence. A kind of rhythm had formed between them. Not a romance, not yet, but a closeness that didn't demand definition. They simply fit, like adjacent puzzle pieces shaped by different kinds of pain. That Friday afternoon, Ava waved him over to a corner booth she had already claimed. Her sweater sleeves were rolled to her elbows, her fingers smudged with graphite. "You're late," she teased as Liam slid into the seat across from her. He smiled. "Some of us don't have the gift of teleportation." "Excuses," she said, nudging a warm muffin toward him. "Cranberry. You look like a cranberry guy." "I don't know what that means," he laughed, "but I'll take it." They talked for a while about school, about weird professors, about the museum exhibit they both wanted to catch before it closed. Ava sketched absent-mindedly while they talked, flipping through her older pages. Suddenly, she paused. "This one," she said softly, turning her sketchpad toward him. It was a newer portrait of him, eyes lifted, backlit by window light, lips parted as if on the edge of saying something. "I started this after the second time we met," she said. "There's something about your expression that day, like you were holding something inside, but didn't want to anymore." Liam's heart thudded quietly. He stared at the drawing, at the way she had seen him, honestly, gently. "Can I ask something?" she said, her voice lower now. "You don't have to answer." He nodded. "Your scar. You touch it sometimes when you're thinking." "What happened?" Liam sat still. No one outside his parents knew. Not even his professors, not really. And yet here, across from this girl who sketched shadows and saw light anyway, he felt no fear. He took a breath. "I had kidney failure. About 2 months ago." Her eyes widened, but she didn't speak. "I was collapsing. Couldn't keep food down. At first I thought it was stress. It wasn't." She waited. "I needed a transplant," he continued, voice steady. "And the only match was my dad." Ava's lips parted. "He gave it to you?" He nodded. "He wasn't supposed to be. For years he didn't even think I was his son." Now she was silent. "It's complicated," Liam said. "He thought my mom had an affair when I was born. Never confronted her. Never confronted me. Just built a wall." Ava whispered, "That's cruel." Liam looked down. "It was. But he didn't walk away. When he found out the truth, he gave me part of himself. Literally. And since then, he's been trying to give me the rest, too." Ava looked at him carefully, then reached across the table. Her fingers brushed his, not tightly, not possessively. "Just enough to say I'm here." "You forgave him?" she asked. Liam thought for a long time before answering. "I'm trying. Some days I do. Other days, I still feel the echoes." Ava smiled softly. "Healing isn't straight. It loops." They sat like that a while, between sips of tea, between words unsaid. Then Liam spoke again. "You draw people who don't know they're being seen." "Why?" She hesitated. "Because I used to be one of them." He waited. "My parents divorced when I was 8. My dad left. My mom spiraled. I spent most of high school pretending I was invisible, because it was safer than being disappointed." Liam met her gaze. "You're not invisible." She smiled. "Neither are you." That night, Liam returned home and sat beside his father on the porch. The stars above San Jose blinked softly. "Dad?" Connor turned. "Yeah? Thanks for choosing to stay." Connor didn't speak. He just reached out and clasped Liam's shoulder. No speeches, just presence. Chapter 14. When the strong falter. It started as a cough. Nothing violent. Just a dry, persistent tickle that Connor brushed off as dust in the vents or maybe allergies. Emily gave him a look the third time he said it, and Liam raised an eyebrow the fifth. By the seventh, Emily booked the doctor's appointment herself. You just had major surgery, she said firmly. No risks. Not now. Connor grumbled, but he went. The results came back the next day. Not life-threatening, but concerning. Post-operative fatigue and mild immune response. His blood pressure was higher than expected, his heart rate erratic. The transplant had gone well, but Connor had ignored rest, returning to work too quickly, carrying stress like a badge of honor. He was told to stop. Completely. No meetings. No laptop. No emails at 2 a.m. For a man like Connor, the prescription might as well have been prison. The first few days were fine until they weren't. Connor paced the house like a trapped wolf. He snapped at Emily over toast, muttered under his breath when the internet glitched, grew quiet and distant by the hour. Liam noticed. He also remembered what that silence had once meant. So one evening, after dinner, he walked into the living room and dropped something heavy in Connor's lap. It was a photo album. What's this? Connor asked. Your life, Liam replied, settling beside him. The first page was a black and white scan of Liam's proof of life photo. The second, a hospital wristband. Then came a shot Liam had taken from the kitchen doorway, his father and mother laughing over spilled coffee grounds. And one from the porch, Connor watching the sky with tired but soft eyes. Connor turned the pages slowly, stunned. These are all recent? Everyone, Liam said. I've been documenting everything. Not just because I'm healing, but because you are. Connor swallowed. I feel useless. You're not, Liam said. You're just learning how to let others help. For once. Connor gave a dry laugh. You sound like the parent now. Liam's gaze didn't waver. Maybe just someone who understands what recovery really takes. A long silence passed. Then Connor said, almost reluctantly, it scares me. What does? The slowness. The quiet. The stillness. I don't know who I am without pressure. Liam looked at him, and for the first time, saw the boy behind the man. The boy who had grown up with expectations, with discipline, with fear disguised as control. You're my dad, Liam said softly. That's who you are. Connor looked at him, eyes red. And this time, he cried openly. Not from weakness. From release. From finally letting himself be held, not as a man failing to carry everything, but as a man finally understanding that love doesn't demand that you do. That night, as Emily passed by the living room, she saw them asleep together on the couch, the photo album open between them, Liam's head resting lightly against Connor's shoulder. Two men, one heart, and a bond stronger than anything biology alone could offer. Chapter 15. A story worth telling. The email arrived on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. Subject: UC Davis Annual Arts and Narrative Showcase. You've been selected. Liam reread the message 3 times. His photography professor, Dr. Sloan, had submitted his portfolio to the university's most prestigious student event, a showcase where selected artists would present their work publicly in front of faculty, peers, and guest critics from the San Francisco creative community. At the bottom of the email was a note. Your work speaks even louder than your words, Liam. But maybe it's time you spoke, too. He stared at the screen for a long time. Was he ready? That night at dinner, he mentioned it. Emily gasped and clapped. That's amazing. You have to do it. Connor looked up from his salad. That's a big deal. You proud? I'm honored, Liam admitted. But nervous. They want a presentation, too. Verbal. Like a TED Talk, but personal? Connor's eyes softened. What would you say? I don't know, Liam said. I've never talked about all of it. Not out loud. Not in front of strangers. Emily reached across the table. What you lived through, Liam, it matters. Not just the pain, the courage, the forgiveness. If you speak, maybe someone out there hears their own story in yours. Connor nodded. You once told me you forgave me because you needed to believe people could change. If someone had said that to me 20 years ago, maybe I would have changed sooner. Liam looked at both of them. What if I break down in the middle? Connor gave a small smile. Then let them see that. Let them see the heart of it. The showcase was held in a converted warehouse near campus. All exposed brick and gallery lighting. Liam arrived early, dressed in a crisp gray sweater and black jeans. His hands trembled slightly as he checked the projector setup. The room filled quickly, rows of chairs occupied by students, faculty, and strangers holding printed programs. In the front row, Emily sat between Connor and Dr. Sloan. When his name was called, Liam stepped up to the mic, the lights warm on his face, a slideshow remote in his hand. He swallowed. Clicked. The first photo appeared behind him, a hospital bracelet on a windowsill. Liam took a breath. I grew up in a house where silence filled the cracks between people, where love wasn't loud, and sometimes it wasn't there at all. For most of my life, my father barely looked at me. I didn't know why. I just knew it hurt. And I carried that into school, into friendships, into the way I held a camera, always observing, never being. He clicked again. Photo, a shadow of two chairs, side by side. When I got sick, we were forced to confront everything we never said. It took a failing kidney for the truth to come out, that I was his son. And that for years he was too afraid to believe it. Click. Photo, their hands before surgery. He gave me a kidney. But what saved me wasn't just the organ. It was the choice. The way he stayed afterward. The way he started showing up every day, even when it was hard. Click. Photo. Their photo album opened between them. This isn't a story about being sick. It's a story about healing, about how sometimes people don't need you to be perfect, they just need you to stay. He paused. The room was quiet. Then, I take photos of light. Because I lived in shadows for a long time. And I want people to know that even in brokenness, even in doubt, there's a way through. He stepped back, and the room erupted in applause. Afterward, strangers approached him. Some teary-eyed, some silent but smiling. One girl simply said, "Thank you. I needed that." Back at home that night, Connor pulled him into a hug without hesitation, without stiffness. "You were brave," he said. Liam closed his eyes. So were you. Chapter 16. The Day the Light Stayed. April 10th. It had been exactly 1 year since the surgery. The calendar square wasn't circled. No party. No balloons. But the weight of the date lingered in the air, subtle and sacred. Liam woke early, before the sun broke over the rooftops. The house was quiet, wrapped in that soft, expectant stillness of morning. He padded into the kitchen in bare feet, made tea, and stood at the window. Everything outside looked the same. Everything inside did not. Connor joined him a few minutes later, rubbing sleep from his eyes, wearing his favorite faded flannel. He didn't say anything right away. Just poured himself coffee and leaned on the counter beside Liam. "Feels like yesterday," Connor said eventually. "Feels like 10 years ago," Liam replied at the same time. They both chuckled. Then silence again, but the good kind. The kind that meant something. That afternoon, the three of them drove up to the coast. Emily packed sandwiches and Liam brought his camera. They stopped at a quiet cliffside park overlooking the Pacific, where the wind carried salt and renewal. They didn't say they were coming to mark the anniversary, but all three knew. They spread out a blanket, ate in the shade, and talked about nothing: movies, bird names, whether or not the wind could taste like spring. Later, Connor pulled something from his coat pocket. A small, square envelope. "For you," he said, handing it to Liam. Liam raised an eyebrow but took it. Inside was a simple card. Handwritten, "You are the bravest thing I've ever done. And the best thing I almost lost. I'm proud of you. Always. Dad." Liam stared at the words, throat tightening. He didn't respond with a speech. He just leaned over and hugged his father, pressing his forehead into Connor's shoulder the way he hadn't done since he was 6. And Connor held him, not as someone trying to make up for lost time, but as a man who knew the time they had now was a gift and was choosing not to waste it. That evening, back home, Liam opened his laptop and began typing a new blog entry. Title: "The Day the Light Stayed. 1 year ago, I thought I might die. 1 year ago, I discovered I was loved. 1 year ago, I learned forgiveness isn't a door, it's a window you have to choose to open every day. I still carry scars. I still have quiet days. But now, the silence speaks of peace, not pain. And the man I used to call the stranger in the hallway, he's my father. And he stayed." He attached a photo from the cliff, Connor, seated in the grass, arms around Emily. Both of them looking at Liam behind the lens. All smiling. Not posed, just present. Chapter 17. New Horizons. The sun had just risen over San Jose when Liam unlocked the door to his small, rented studio apartment near downtown. The scent of fresh paint still lingered faintly in the air, mingling with the promise of new beginnings. Boxes sat scattered across the hardwood floor, their contents half unpacked. His camera rested atop a crate of books, ready for the day's shoot. Today was his first day as an intern photographer at Vista Creative, a local agency known for its bold campaigns and community projects. Liam stepped inside, heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. He'd spent years preparing for this through pain, recovery, and unexpected growth, and now it was time to prove he belonged. Across town, Connor stood outside his office building, watching the morning crowd rush by. His own work had slowed considerably, and he was learning to accept a slower pace. But pride swelled when Liam called him just before noon. "Dad, you won't believe it. My first assignment is a photo series on urban renewal, capturing stories of neighborhoods rebuilding after wildfire." "That sounds amazing," Connor said, smiling. "You're doing something important." Liam laughed softly. "I hope so. It's scary, though. What if I'm not good enough?" Connor's voice was steady. "You're more than good enough. You've already proven that." That evening, Liam met Ava at their usual cafe. She had a new sketch pad under her arm and a sparkle in her eyes. "I got accepted to a graduate program for visual arts," she said. "Wow," Liam said, genuinely thrilled. "That's incredible." They talked late into the night about their dreams and doubts, how healing doesn't erase fear, but sometimes gives you courage anyway. For the first time, Liam felt ready to let someone in, not just his art, but his heart. Back at home, Emily and Connor watched Liam's growing confidence with pride and quiet relief. "He's becoming his own man," Emily said softly. Connor nodded. "And I'm learning to be the father he deserves." Chapter 18. The Weight of the Frame. It was a gray Tuesday morning when Liam arrived at Vista Creative, his heart pounding not from excitement this time, but anxiety. His editor, a sharp-eyed woman named Melissa, had called him in for a meeting the day before. "We're counting on you for the wildfire project," she had said, her tone serious. "But the client is picky. They want emotion, authenticity, and impact. Can you deliver?" Liam nodded, but inside, doubt gnawed at him. The first shoot was in a small neighborhood recently devastated by fire. Families rebuilding homes, community gardens rising from ash. Liam walked the streets, camera in hand, searching for moments that told the story, not just of loss, but of hope. He snapped photos of charred doorframes, children playing in dirt, elderly neighbors sharing coffee on porches. But when he showed his shots to Melissa, her frown told him all he needed to know. "These are good," she said slowly, "but they're safe. I want raw. I want the story to leap off the page. Liam left the office that day feeling like he'd failed. That evening at the cafe, Ava listened as Liam poured out his frustrations. I'm supposed to capture hope, he said. But I feel like all I'm seeing is pain. How do I find light when everything feels so heavy? Ava reached across the table, squeezing his hand. Sometimes you don't find the light. Sometimes you create it. Her words lingered as Liam walked home through the dusky streets. The next morning, Liam returned to the neighborhood, determined to look deeper. He talked with residents, listened to their stories of nights spent in shelters, of neighbors who became family, of dreams rebuilt on ashes. He captured tears, smiles, the steady hands that cleared rubble. He photographed a mother singing softly to her child amid the ruins, an old man planting a tree sapling, young volunteers painting walls bright colors. When Liam returned to Vista Creative and presented his new portfolio, Melissa smiled. This is it, she said. This is what they wanted. Back at home, Connor watched Liam's tired but triumphant smile. You did it, he said quietly. Liam nodded. I think I'm finally learning what it means to tell a story that matters. Connor reached out and clasped his son's shoulder. And you're not alone. Chapter 19, Shadows on the Horizon. The email arrived late on a Friday night. Subject: Invitation to exhibit at the San Francisco Arts Festival. Liam stared at the screen, disbelief swirling with excitement. His wildfire photo series had caught the attention of the festival's curators, a chance to showcase his work to a wider audience. He immediately called Ava. They want us to submit a proposal, he said, voice shaking. That's huge, she replied. You deserve it. But as the days passed, the pressure mounted. Editing, preparing artist statements, coordinating with the festival, it all felt overwhelming. Liam's health, still fragile, began to strain under the weight. One evening, Connor noticed his son struggling to stay awake over his laptop. Maybe you're pushing too hard, Connor said gently. Liam shook his head. I can't stop now. This is everything. Emily, worried, arranged a family meeting. We need to support Liam, she said firmly, not just with words, but with action. They devised a plan. Connor would take on more household tasks. Emily offered to help with administrative festival work. Ava volunteered to assist with editing. But even with support, the late nights and constant deadlines frayed Liam's nerves. Tensions surfaced unexpectedly. One morning, Connor accidentally overheard Liam snapping at Emily over a minor mistake. Later, Liam withdrew, avoiding family dinners and phone calls. Connor confronted him quietly. Talk to me, he urged. We're in this together. Liam's defenses crumbled. I'm scared, he admitted. What if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough? Connor pulled him into a firm embrace. You've already proven how strong you are. But even the strongest need rest. We'll face it all, together. That night, Liam slept more peacefully than he had in weeks. The road ahead was uncertain. But for the first time, he knew he wouldn't have to walk it alone. Chapter 20, The Light We Carry. The opening night of the San Francisco Arts Festival buzzed with energy, a crowd of artists, critics, and enthusiasts gathering in the sleek gallery space downtown. Liam stood near his exhibit, a sweeping collection of photographs chronicling the wildfire neighborhood's devastation and rebirth. The walls told a story of loss and hope, shadow and light. Beside him, Ava smiled, sketchbook in hand, quietly capturing moments from the evening. Emily and Connor arrived arm in arm, their faces glowing with pride. As guests flowed through the exhibit, many paused to look deeply at Liam's work. Some wiped tears, others exchanged knowing glances. His images had spoken louder than words ever could. When Liam stepped up to deliver his short speech, his voice was steady. This project started as a way to understand pain, my pain, and the pain of a community. But through it, I learned that healing is possible, even in the darkest places. And that sometimes the light we carry within can help others find their way. Applause filled the room. Afterward, as the crowd thinned, Connor pulled Liam aside. "You've done more than tell a story," he said softly. "You've built a bridge." Liam smiled, eyes shimmering. "And I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. Connor squeezed his shoulder. "No, we did it, all of us, together." Later that night, back home, the house felt warmer than ever. Liam hung a new photo on the wall, a shot of the three of them standing on the cliffside, arms around each other. The Pacific Ocean stretching endlessly behind. He looked at the frame and whispered, "This is home."